When does our search for meaning begin? I was born into an Episcopalian family, which is sort of like Catholic light. I remember church being a countdown to brunch. I would tick off the time in my head, 20 minutes to pancakes, 10 minutes to pancakes. I wasn't religious. I wasn't non-religious. I just wasn't that interested in much more than pancakes at the time. But I remember that wondering about the afterlife and the meaning of my own existence began when I was 13, when my father died from multiple sclerosis. I couldn't see any meaning or purpose behind it, and since then I'd sort of blocked it out of my mind, living in denial of my own mortality. But the whole what's the point debate in my head started again with the events of September 11, 2001. That was the day that forced a lot of people to rethink their place in the universe. Suddenly, there was our mortality right on television. And that act of murder was caused by people who truly believed what they were doing was right. How can we all believe in things that are so different? And with the world in constant turmoil and things just seeming to get worse, I started to have a personal crisis. Why am I here, and what is my purpose? Am I supposed to start a family? Fight for some cause? What is the point of everything? The more I thought about it, the more questions I had. And so I started asking people these questions. I felt like I had to go to the source where these ideas and religions and philosophies originated. This documentary is my attempt to try to find meaning in the chaos. I started every interview, with the biggest question I could think of. Why do we exist?
That's a hard question.
Why do we exist?
The cycle of the nature.
To serve God.
Just to praise Him.
To make a difference.
Evolution. Non-existence has nothing to recommend it.
Why do we exist? Because of our karma.
I like to think that I exist to figure out why I exist.
Sex.
We exist to love.
And chocolate.
I'd have fun.
To be caretakers of Mother Earth.
Masturbation.
I think you're speaking for the devil.
Feeling emotions.
The friends, the family.
I think we exist because God created us because He was lonely.
I think for me, the biggest thing is I don't give a shit.
You should not be in a hurry to find out the answer. What is the purpose of life? What's the aim of life? Why do I exist? You know, these are the questions which would help you to find your path.
Asking this question just seemed to raise even more questions. So I decided to travel all over the world and talk to as many different people as I could until I found the answer, that deep meaning that connects everything. Until I discovered how I should spend the precious time I have left on this planet. But first, I started with my friends, like my buddy Joe Keys.
I believe in God, good orderly direction. This is a small crucifix, and I keep it just within reach of my bed, so at night during the dark hours of torment, you know, I could maybe look at the light glinting off of that and know that maybe if my heart were to suddenly seize up, at the last minute I could reach out to Christ if I so chose.
One of the questions that it seems that's important in your work is suffering.
Well, I think it's funny. To me, I think it's a cosmic joke. I don't know if it's mental illness or sickness on my part, but I think the fact that we all suffer from the day we're born till the day that we expire is funny.
Jesus expects us to suffer.
Why is that again, Mom?
Because He died for us. The least we can do for Him is suffer.
Okay, here we go.
My friend Bobby Gaylor has opinions on anything you can throw at him. What do you think about death?
I went to the coroner's facility here in Los Angeles. I was doing some research for a project, and when I went to the first crypt, I was surrounded by 104 dead bodies, and they're all on gurneys. You can see them. They're not in drawers. And the feeling that I would have thought that I had standing in the middle of all those bodies is not the feeling that I had. I was filled with hope. Because all of a sudden it dawned on me, like, these people have no more choices in life, but I do. I still have tons of choices. And already I was just my brain was starting to go, okay, when I leave here, I'm going to call my brother. I haven't talked to him in a long time. I'm going to call my mother. I've also wanted to go to Europe. I'm going to book a trip to Europe. And for the rest of that day, as fast as I'm talking right now, I was so full of, like, I have choices. And you know, it went away. But for that day, I was just full of that because those people reminded me they don't have any choices left. But I do.
I caught up with my friend Steve Fromstein at work, which for him is on stage.
People say, I'll pray for you. Like I'm supposed to appreciate that. Like I can't pray for myself. Like God's up there going, I didn't know Steve was a friend of yours. Of course I'll help him. You never do it. You say I'll pray for you, and then you forget about it. And nobody ever comes back later and says, hey, what happened? I thought you said you were going to pray for me. I don't doubt God, I doubt his representatives. So far, God's never spoken to me. Only man has spoken to me, and men, as we know, are often mistaken and liars and motivated by other things other than the desire to communicate truth.
When I was talking over my project with my neighbor, he told me that his kids were already pondering the big questions, and he suggested I do an interview. What do you think happens when we die?
There is no afterlife. I'm gonna let you in a little secret there. There's no heaven, no hell, you die. Boom, dead. Like a blindfold on your eyes and you can't think anymore. I think it's a lot better than eternal happiness personally. A world with only happiness is a world with no point. And I'd feel like a puppet. I'd feel controlled. I can't feel pain. I can't feel anything but this happiness. I'd hate it.
I felt like I needed to broaden my scope, to find some experts, people who've already wrestled with these questions. So I started looking around Southern California, and I found my first guru.
In these transcendent parts, my name is Aha.
So what is your occupation?
You just call me a transpersonal undoing agent.
Aha holds regular seminars where he teaches people how to conduct the energy of their lives.
With each tap of my foot, I crush your obstacles. Whatever it is that is holding you back, whatever kind of doubt, go ahead and confront me with it.
My childhood and upbringing in India, which believed in predestiny and fate, and then my adult years here, which is essentially manifest destiny. And I find myself struggling between the two.
In all cases, whatever direction you go, whether you end up swept away by fate or recognized as some great hero of destiny, you're gonna be fucking forgotten. And to know that you're gonna be forgotten and to do it anyway is the definition of courage.
How do we know, or how can we figure out what our purpose is? Like, I have no idea. I don't even know where to start.
I hate to be the one to break it to you, but see the person next to you? They're your purpose over there. And the person on the other side of you is your purpose over there. What you talk about when you're looking for purpose is a fucking recognition.
Part of the problem is that we go through life worrying about little details, like paying bills and taking out the trash. And it isn't until you have speed bumps like illness and death that force you to think about the why question. Do we have a purpose?
The expansion of consciousness, the expansion of the human mind.
To accept Christ as their Savior.
Purpose is to know God. Our main purpose, human being, is for salvation.
Man's purpose is to chase women. Our purpose is to maximize our number of living descendants.
Love is the reason for existence.
I don't think there was love when mankind began. I think there was only stay alive.
I suspect one of our purposes is to witness the universe.
For the first time, as far as we know, anywhere ever, there's a species that could colonize the entire cosmos.
What matters is not what we think our purpose is, but that we feel like we're part of a purpose that's greater than ourselves.
The immediate purpose coming to mind for me is to be radiant as fuck.
Every individual should be trying to satisfy themselves about the meaning of their own life, not the meaning of life.
I feel like the meaning of my life is related to the people I know and what I've learned from them. So I decided to widen my circle of connections further. I sent out a wave of emails to scientists, authors, and religious leaders all over the United States. It was fun to see who would respond to an offer to discuss life's big questions. My first stop was in Santa Cruz to meet with an astrophysicist. If anybody has an idea about where we come from, maybe the guy who studies how stars are born and die will have some clues.
Well, it all started in this universe about 14.7 billion years ago when there was a Big Bang, maybe one of many. And in that Big Bang, there were created only a couple of elements, hydrogen and helium. And you can't make very much in the way of interesting life or even planets out of just those two elements. Helium's inert, hydrogen has nothing to react with. And so beyond those two elements, we look to the stars for their creation. The first stars made the first heavy elements. And as time passed, more and more stars evolved, some of them dying as supernovae, and they produced all of the 80-some-odd elements of nature that we know of. We are stardust. The universe evolves. Stars evolve. People evolve. Everything that is alive evolves. We may be the path towards some ultimate intelligence, some ultimate life in the universe that would be virtually indistinguishable from what we call God.
When you ask people why they're here, God seems to come up a lot. Is there a God?
Yes, there is a God. You can't prove there's a God. I believe there is.
ブディストにとって超越者たる神というものは存在しません。
There's no word for it, we just call him the creator.
Is there one God or many gods?
Only one. God is only one.
不单独是有信仰神，并且很多神性。
I don't want to say that I think God is purely a figment of people's imagination, but it is.
I don't think you can define God.
God is the answer.
And he's omnipotent.
He's everywhere.
He's everything.
If he's omnipotent, can he make a weight which is so heavy that he can't lift it?
God is inside. God is self-realized soul.
God is nature. Nature is God.
God is love. I think when we have found love, we have found God.
In my search for God, I kept doing what everyone does, which is they have a very narrow definition of God, and then as they look for evidence and don't find it, they keep broadening the definition of God till it just becomes God is air, or God is a life force, or God is a molecule. Like,
I don't see any reason to worship energy, to worship the universe.
The trees, the grass, the plant life. That's the evidence of God.
I can make a fortune now. Right? All I got to do is write a book on how particle physics proves God exists, you know, and it'll all be total hooey, but it'll sell 1 million copies, right? And I can leave the money to my kids, and none of my friends will ever talk to me again, but, you know, I'll be rich.
The other thing we have to also consider is that there may be a God, but that God may not be a benevolent force.
If a plane crashes and 300 people are destroyed instantly, and one survivor gets out and says, it's miraculous that I've survived, that makes no sense for me.
Because what about the people who died as
well?
well?
I mean, if God behaved like that, then logically, why didn't he stop the plane from crashing in the first place?
That would be a completely arbitrary God with whom, you know, you might fear such a God, but you wouldn't love him, would you?
No.
I can't sit here and tell you anything about who God is unless that experience happens to you.
I would like to believe that God exists in every good deed.
I take the concept of God as a challenge, not an answer.
The variety of definitions still made me wonder just how big a player is God in the overall answer. Looking for another piece of the celestial puzzle, I stopped in at the home of one of the fathers of string theory. How did the universe come into being?
What string theory suggests is at extremely small distances, space is knotted up into various kinds of what we call compactified extra dimensions, very, very small properties of space are like DNA and give rise to a world which is like the kind of world we look at and see. Just like the number of possibilities in biology is enormous, the number of ways of rearranging a DNA molecule is fantastic. It's too big to even write the number down. The number of ways of rearranging the DNA of the universe that string theory suggests is also enormously big.
Does it require a start button to have started everything?
But if someone pushed the button, who pushed their button?
God, we believe, created himself.
We are an accident.
Everything created is one thought in the life of God. Boom.
Was there nothing before the big boom? Was it just a vast void and the sudden boom, and then that developed into, you know, human beings at McDonald's?
Somehow there is a source. You know, why is there something rather than nothing?
You could just as easily ask, why should there be nothing instead of something? Maybe something is the natural state of things, and nothing would be really weird.
Maybe it did need an entity to start it, but it's a very, very different thing to go from there to saying that that entity was a God, a conscious being, an intelligence, the kind of thing that forgives sins and answers prayers. That is the most preposterous piece of lazy succumbing to wishful thinking that you could imagine.
When the universe evolved, it evolved in many ways like the tree of life. It evolved into separate branches, so distantly separated that we can't see them. The universe is enormously big, and those different places have different properties, just like different places on the tree of life have different properties. And in some tiny, small little fragment of it, things happen to be just possible for us to exist. Where do we live? We live where we can live.
Is that tiny fragment our universe, and there are many, maybe many universes?
That's the picture that a lot of physicists are coming to. The word universe was never intended to have a plural.
I'd never thought of the concept of multiple universes before. The idea was almost impossible for me to think about what that even means. To get another perspective, I dropped in at my friend Jeff Bolt's house.
We're in Fairfax, California, and this is the spiritual center of Northern California. It's got every type of religionist practice here, every type of people, every type of belief, every type of non-belief, artifacts representing every religion, every country in the world. Apothecarian tea room, lots of healing herbs, lots of crystals for healing or for not for healing. And of course, if you walk down a little bit further, one of my favorite stores is the Spirit of the Goddess.
I sell a lot of head circlets. This is a beautiful one right here. I've had women come into the shop since I opened it and just stand here and cry. Jewelry does that, I know, to people. They take it very personally.
What is important about the goddess? How does the circlet facilitate that?
Your third eye is right here.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody needs a goddess circlet. Hello? Are you in need of a goddess circlet immediately right now? Do you have to have it FedExed? We have the one with the crystal in the front that you found so empowering.
She had to get that circlet out immediately. So we went to lunch. What food would you recommend that might help me find an answer to why I exist?
All the entrees in the menu are different kind of like affirmations, like I'm happy, I'm generous, I'm accepting. You could just intuitively flip through with your eyes closed and like see what area of the menu drew you most. Maybe you're like, today being heroic is why I exist.
What is the best thing about existing?
Experiencing love on all levels.
What should I do to find the truth?
Know you are divine. Know that you are whole and complete unto yourself, and choose to be love and give, give, give.
Where did that come from? Did it come from you, or did you learn that somewhere?
Go film our ceiling.
It's on the ceiling?
Yeah.
When you see that on the ceiling, what is it inside you that says, that's the right answer?
I'm awake beyond my years.
What is God?
We are all God. We are all goddess.
Do you believe in God?
So the tattoo begins with the seed of life. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that particular piece of sacred geometry. And then it's every month of development in utero, all the way to the fully developed fetus. There are fallopian tubes and ovaries. And then there's the emerging fetus and the labrys, which is a perfectly balanced tool of harvest.
So you are heroic, extra relishing
Thank
buckwheat
you.
crackers. You are celebrating.
After ordering, I had a case of buyer's remorse, thinking I should have gone with the I am fabulous. Oh well, next time. I turned east and headed into northern Nevada.
The people here, we call ourselves Cuyutica, one of the many bands of the Paiute tribe. We're here at the pyramid and the Stone Mother on the east side of the lake. This is considered one of the sacred areas. In some of the formations, you see faces, and those are the spirits of our ancestors. When you come out here to places like this, you can still feel the power that's in the land, and then you know that Creator is here.
Right now, there's 583 different tribes. We all believe in what we call the Guinya here, the golden eagle. If you see somebody prayer, you see somebody with a feather, you're blowing the blessing to the Creator, and He helps it, takes it up there.
How does one become a spiritual leader for the tribe?
Certain individuals in the old days were born with what we call two spirits, a male and a female within one body. And two-spirit is the homosexual. It was almost like a sacred thing when you were born two-spirited. You were given responsibilities like the burial practices.
This is Papoose Meadows. In June 1866, there was a massacre.
They killed men, women, and children.
The spiritual gathering we do is remembering all our ancestors that have been killed here.
We watched our ways disappear. They outlawed the language, they outlawed the religion, the spirituality. The people are buried along the ridge.
We had to give offerings for them to let them know that they need to go on to the next world. They're settled now.
Is there an afterlife?
Well, I gotta admit, I hope so.
Well, the afterlife would be the place where all the people I've loved went.
Where is it located?
It's just in the air.
You know, in heaven, I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to I'm going to have abs of steel, and I'm going to have, I'm going to be chiseled, and I'm going to have a great tan.
In a way, it's a mirror of ourselves, because people look into the afterlife and say, this is what I want to have happen to me. And then they try to live up to that portrait they make.
When we consider all that it entails and that there is so much human pain and suffering involved, if it was for no purpose other than to be going to oblivion after physical death, then I'm afraid it would be very sad and we would all be hoodwinked and foolish people.
If you are in a sorrowful condition, you are already in the hell. If you are happy, you are already in heaven.
But full freedom he will be given in hereafter in heaven. There he is full freedom. He can eat anything, he can lot of wives.
I feel like there's a continuing of consciousnness and there's a potential for reincarnation.
Do you have a memory of who you were in a past life?
Of course. But don't ask me now, I won't reveal it.
あるとすれば、それはやっぱり人の心の中だと思います。
This is really exciting. You don't go anywhere. So this minute right now is immensely precious, considerably more precious than if you had an infinite number of them.
Could he get up there and say, by the way, I've changed the rules, I forgive y'all too, and you can come into heaven? Sure he could, he's God. But every Christian up there would start complaining and say, no, they have to go to hell.
There was an afterlife present even before they were humans. I mean, we know that Neanderthals, put grave goods in their graves for no practical reason. So it must have been because they felt that the people would have needed them. Without the afterlife, a lot of people find it very hard to find meaning in life.
I guess for me, the question of the afterlife boils down to, should I live my life for now, or should I live it for later? Still living in the moment, I got back on the road and headed south to Texas.
Peace to you in the name of the living risen Christ. Good morning.
There's at least 30 churches in Dallas now that are open and welcoming to gay people.
We've also figured out that there are plenty of heterosexual people who have been put out of their church because they asked questions or because they didn't agree.
I think that it's the biggest gay church in the world because God has a sense of humor. Texas is a very conservative state, but I think it's also because that's where it's needed the most. Several times when we were looking for property, churches refused to sell to us once they figured out who we were. And in one case, one church swore that they would burn the church to the ground before they'd sell it to gay and lesbian people.
In 1995, my pastor shared with me that he had received a phone call from the board of ministry saying that someone was claiming that I was a lesbian and I would have 72 hours in which to respond to that claim. I was stunned and very afraid. I asked him, well, what are my options? As I turned to go, he stopped me at the door and said, you know, Joe, the only way they recognized the risen Christ was by his wounds.
So many people in our congregation connected with that place of being put out of your profession because of your sexuality.
I grew up in a religious home, and when I grew into adulthood and found out that I was gay, that created all kinds of difficulty. I thought I was possessed by a demon. And what people don't realize who say all these things about, love the sinner, hate the sin, the pain that they cause, the damage they cause in their children, in their families, haunts people for the rest of their life.
Examine everything you read, everything you listen to, and ask yourself, is this creating fear in me and in our world, or is it creating hope?
This is where I stand each and every Sunday morning and expound upon the word of truth. Now, if there was a Last Supper, and we know that Christ referred to the Last Supper, well then that had to be a First Supper. And this is my depiction of the First Supper. And if you notice, all of those men there look just like me. Jesus looked just like Middle Easterners. His skin tone was probably as dark, if not darker than mine. And right next door to the church, we have what we call the barbecue restaurant. Anywhere you go in this country, they associate Huntsville, Texas, and the barbecue place is one and the same.
Why do we exist?
The reason we're here on this planet is to eat good barbecue.
As a matter of fact, as soon as you put this camera down, we're going to eat lunch.
I left Texas with a full stomach to look for an evangelist I'd once seen and videotaped when I was in college. I wondered if I'd feel as strongly as I did when I first saw him.
The fires of hell. Die in your sin.
I found Brother Jed again, right where I'd last seen him, on a university campus.
The Bible warns us that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God.
My style is called confrontational evangelism.
Get a husband, get pregnant. That's what you girls were designed for. Then you also have a womb. That womb is for carrying the baby that you conceive through your vagina.
But if you're going to get people's attention, I don't think you're going to get their attention by initially speaking of God's love, but you got to put the fear of God in them.
You believe I'm going to hell?
Well, of course, but you can be saved.
Why is God so selfish that he requires us to love him before we can not be tortured forever?
My answer is the most loving thing that God can do for the unbeliever is to send him to hell.
Some of the best times I've had in college were right here in the square debating with people like Jed.
And everyone just kind of gathers for entertainment just because they're so ridiculous.
It is interesting to me because I do believe most of what he's saying. And I have to admit, in my head, I am ridiculing him at the same time because of how radical he is.
There's a war going on, a war for your souls.
On the first day that I saw you, your eyes met mine.
Repent and believe the gospel. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. There's a day of judgment coming, a day of wrath coming. Flee from the wrath to come into the everlasting, ever-loving arms of Jesus Christ.
What is sin?
Every time we sin, it's as if we put Jesus back up on the cross.
Many religions will take regular human behaviors and call them wrong, sinful. And so you're going to be beholden to these priests for an absolution from what is natural, and that is the greatest con game in all of history.
But if we look at religious societies all over the world, we see there is, no shortage of sin there. So religion has not been able to stop sin.
Every single moment is like a test for us.
Why is it that God wants to test us?
Because he loves us.
And some sinful activities you have to suffer for 7 lifetimes.
आप कुछ करोगे तो ठीक है, नहीं तो आप बकरी बनना पड़ेगा, भेड़, कुत्ते, बिल्ली बनेंगे आप. ये बन जाए मेंढकी.
The punishment for sin is enjoyment.
The punishment is stoning or 40 lashes or whatever, and it's all written out in the Torah.
Sin is that which eats you up from inside.
Thought can be corrected. The deed done caused the damage.
In Seal, Alabama, a church burned down. I looked for people who had attended services there, and I found someone, a local folk artist.
I've been flying ever since I was about 7 years old.
What is this? Is this a sculpture, or is this just a pile of junk?
Oh, this is a tractor. This is a tractor that I used to fly with right here. Somebody lit the water out and blew the motor up in. So as soon as I get the right man here, I get it fixed and start running again. It don't need nothing but the motor build.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Is this a run again?
Oh, yeah, he'll run. He got everything on. I draw day in and night in and day out and night out. This is Eve and that's Adam. The snake worked with Eve and made her disobey God and Adam. And that's what fired up the whole congregation. The church I go to just recently burnt down.
Why do you think God would let a church burn down?
There's something he's displeased with. I was talking with a white man, and he said they got dinosaurs today in a cave.
I don't think they have dinosaurs. They might have bones. They have alligators.
Well, I got alligators down there on my pond, and the law don't allow me to touch them. There's one so large that when the cars seen crossing the road, they stop and don't run over me. But now if I walk out there, they'll run over me. Yeah, they'll run over me.
That doesn't seem fair.
It's not fair, but that's the way you do. And the law come and told me that this land here, my land, belongs to the alligators and just let me stay here. But I pay the tax, but the alligators is the ruler over the land.
I'm the owner and founder and president of Ultimate Christian Wrestling Ministries.
My name is Justin Dirt, the custodial crippler.
My style of wrestling is what you might call old school.
I actually accepted Christ in one of our dramas to show people how it's done. And from that moment on, I've been a baby face or a good guy.
We're rehearsing for the drama tonight, which is where Jesus is put on the whipping post and whipped before he's taken off to the cross.
When he goes, Jesus, you don't say a word, okay? You holler, seize the prisoner.
Seize the prisoner. Tie him up.
God showed me and put it in my heart there that this is what he wanted me to do.
God, we just pray, Lord, that you would allow us to go out there and to bless you, God, with our performance tonight. That souls would be saved, hearts would be touched, and lives would be changed.
Amen.
I will be in the main event tonight facing beautiful Bruce.
At the end of the match, Bruce is going to turn on Rob, and we're going to have him fisting to start whipping him. At that point in time, the lights will cut out, and when they come back on, it'll be Jesus laying there and not Rob, because ultimately he took our place. He died for us all.
Jesus! Seize the prisoner! Bring me that Jew! Come on, you
I don't know of any other ministry out there that does it the way we do it.
You can kind of see the change in people as they come up at the end of the show, and they just want to better their lives. I think it's a good thing.
It's really good for kids to find out who really is God, and it helps little kids want to come to church.
If God will use a wooden staff that was meant to tend sheep to part an entire ocean and deliver a nation, why wouldn't he use a wrestling ministry? God's into unique methods.
I admit I've never seen anything quite as unique, and they're not really hurting anybody. But if we're going to find some common ground between all the religions and belief systems, we've got to agree on something. We have to find some kind of basic truth. But what is truth? Is there an objective truth, or is it all relative? Can you define the word truth?
No, I think it's like pornography. You know it when you see it.
Truth is what the Torah says.
ईश्वर की भक्ति करके ही सत्यता को प्राप्त कर सकते हैं।
遇到的事情不属于什么真理。So in Islam, the truth prevails, not majority.
Truth can be offensive. Jesus offended people.
What is truth?
What people don't want to hear.
When somebody claims to know the truth and to be able to tell it to you, the first thing you should do is check and see if you still have your watch, because that's the prelude to getting taken.
Ultimately, it comes down to a question of feelings.
Your feelings have nothing to do with what's objectively true in the world, only what's satisfactory to you.
How does Christ mix with drag racing?
He created it.
I've had a pretty messed up childhood, and I think God gave me the faith of a small child. I just totally believe. I know with all my heart. I know my knower knows that there's a God, and he's in charge of everything. I just know that, and to me, that's faith, and I don't, you know, people can talk to me about it, and they can add, questions and scientific things and try and prove things. It means nothing to me.
In science, you don't use words like truth. You say closer to truth.
Science, is an opinion. Science seems to me is, in a way, just another word for rationality.
The strength of your belief should depend on the strength of the evidence.
It is Mormon doctrine that we do not know the truth. We just have whatever piece of it we've been able to understand. God can only tell us as much as we can grasp.
Only art comes close to trying to answer truth.
The opposite of faith is a tendency to ask questions.
Well, I suppose faith is something where you believe in something until it's been proven to you that it's true.
People will, in a conversation, if they believe in something and you put to them 10 points, 5 of them agreeing with what they say and 5 disagreeing, and then you ask them an hour later what you said to them, they'll remember the confirming evidence. We sift things out. It's part of the reason we don't have free will, because we're incapable of actually really sitting back from the evidence.
We have a free will to decide which way we wish to go, but the results are decided by him only. So in a way, it's no free will.
I think truth is what we're all really searching for, isn't it? Even though sometimes it's more fun to search for it than actually find it.
Religiosity is an impulse genetically inherited.
I heard an interview with an author in New York who was calling himself a neurotheologist. He said God is a part of our brain. It sounded interesting, so I decided to look the guy up.
With the advent of self-conscious awareness, we became the first species to become aware of our own inevitable demise. The fact that we were now aware that we exist, we were also aware that one day we won't. So the anxiety created by that awareness was so overwhelming, again, nature had to select some type of cognitive modification to help us survive the anxiety that came with self-conscious awareness, basically to enable us to survive our own intelligence. So instead of stripping us of our intelligence, which was our most powerful tool, it instead instilled us with this delusion that there's this alternate spiritual realm out there through which we will live forever.
Across the bridge in New Jersey is the home of Amiri Baraka, who I had once seen read a poem critical of the U.S. government after 9/11. How does someone reconcile the fact that they're praying for help if they do believe that there's help to be had and then it doesn't come, like Hurricane Katrina?
I can see it if you say, God, Katrina's getting ready to get rid of my house. Come down here and help me. And lo and behold, bam, Katrina diverted. But that's not the case, and I've never seen it. You can walk down the street and find 10 churches before you get to Springfield Avenue. There's churches on both sides of the blocks. Black people pray more than anybody in the world. But what do they have to show for it? Well, their prayers. They got big churches, got wealthy ministers, but how come the streets are dirty? How come my children are not in school? How come my children are killing each other on the street? See, that's a different thing.
Every day you need to pray. Every day you need to praise God.
Prayer has never failed me.
It eases the suffering because I think that it's being heard.
When my daughter Carrie graduated and we prayed, believe me, this is how I know prayer works, we prayed her through high school.
We certainly have a lot of evidence with our brain scans that show that the brain is activated when people pray or meditate. It seems to lower levels of anxiety and depression.
Lord God, we pray for our sister Kathleen. We pray, Lord, that you will lift her up.
Sometimes people pray hard for a miracle, and a miracle happens. Miracle meaning something very, very unlikely. But the truth is, the most unlikely thing of all would be if no unlikely things happened.
God probably does answer every prayer. It's just not always the answer that we want.
The dark side of that belief that thoughts mean something are people who say, oh, there's people starving in wherever, but I am just praying for them. It leads people to think that praying for other people actually means something, that they're actually sending good thoughts into the universe actually means something. It doesn't mean anything. Only actions mean something.
Don't you think that if God really was the kind of God who listened to everyone's prayers, then he would grant massive prayers like no genocide, etc., which Christians seem to have a really hard time explaining away the concept of genocide. It's like the other day I asked Santa, I sat on Santa's lap and said, Santa, why do children in Africa get genocide for Christmas? I really did. And he said, well, to them, maybe genocide makes them happy, and he couldn't answer it.
I look back at, for example, some of the passages in Judges about, ethnic cleansing, and I cannot believe that this is actually something that God really wanted.
Why would God permit the murder of 6 million Jews?
On the whole, they did not serve God. Their own prophets constantly testify that they are a rebellious people.
Everything that happens to us is a challenge to find God in that event.
When God causes earthquakes, look at how many people die. But what is the reason?
Pray harder next time.
天只能顺着他，所以说他祈祷了没有用。
I think it wakes people up and it draws them closer to God.
My brain was swimming in so much new information, I was starting to feel lost. Until I was literally lost.
Approaching right turn.
I finally figured out which right to take on Main Street. And then I found the house where the late Carl Sagan's wife lives.
The God of Spinoza, the God of Einstein, is our ability to understand nature. That's how we worship what is sacred, what is holy, by trying to find the deepest understanding of nature. Our bias against this is so strong, you can hear it in the word supernatural, above the natural, as if our fantasies and our little stories that we make up, whether we made them up 10,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago or this week, as if our stories could compete with the reality of nature as revealed by science.
What is this?
It's a postcard from Gandhi, and it says, "Dear friend, for me the whole of philosophy is summed up in truth at any cost." This is a page from Einstein's Unified Theory notebook. This is from Darwin's own manuscript, The Origin of the Species. He would say we were religious. These are the objects we venerate.
To find the meaning of life, most people go in a religious direction. What is religion?
View the stories of religion as a hypothesis. Test them. If you live by these commandments, you will be happy. People around you will have better lives because of it.
Why does God allow there to be multiple religions that are so different?
Because God allows man to express himself.
There are over 1,000 religions because no one religion has exterminated the rest.
Everybody can't be right. Hopefully, I'm not wrong.
The basis of all religion is the fear of death.
Fear has got no place in religion. Mahavir said you become fearless.
I think our brains want to make sense of things. We want answers to things, and we come up with answers, whether they're true or not.
Do you really want to know what you actually believe in? Let me spend a day in your life and I'll tell you what you believe in, because the way you live your life is what you believe in.
I love people asking questions. I love people attacking the Quran. But when they attack, when they get the answer, they get convinced.
The person that confronts them as the opposite point of view is their liberator.
In science, whenever we see a diversity of viewpoints, at the end of the day, they all become unified because there's one reality. If religion is talking about something that is external to us, then all of them will likely follow, I believe, a similar path.
In Rhode Island, I stopped for lunch on my way to meet with the guy who wrote the textbook on the psychology of religion. Why do humans develop religion?
Freud argued that religion is an attempt to recover the security of infancy. Whenever that child, infant, finds itself in a position of need and cries out, almost magically, the mother appears. The child has an illusion that he or she has caused this being to appear. So that happens over and over, thousands and thousands of times. Those repeated experiences of being taken care of almost magically by this wonderfully empathic being remain there in the unconscious. Later, when we as adults find ourselves again in a position of need, we call out again, typically in the form of prayer.
In Boston, I had an appointment to meet with a Harvard psychologist who studies what makes us happy. Is having children part of our purpose?
People tend to be a little less happy when they have children than when they don't. A little less happy at the point in the marriage when the children are little or adolescents than when the children are non-existent or grown and gone. Recent studies suggest that when you're interacting with your children, you're about as happy as when you're doing housework. The fact of the matter is that our day-to-day lives with our children are rough. They're difficult. They're hard work. And it makes us a little less happy. Nonetheless, it gives us the kind of meaning in our lives that when we reflect on our own lives, sends our happiness shooting up into the stratosphere. I guess it depends which thing you want in life. Do you want a life where 23.5 out of the 24 hours, you're doing pretty well, you're doing what you like, and you're enjoying it, but when you reflect on the meaning of your life, you say, maybe it doesn't add up to much? Or do you want one of those lives where 23.5 hours, you're working hard, you're toiling, you're saying, no, not now, not yet, I already told you? But every once in a while, you draw a deep breath, you look at the whole thing and go, wow, here I am fulfilling my purpose as a mammal.
Not much makes me happier than good food, and I knew just where to find that happiness. Santarpio's Pizza, East Boston.
What we have here is where we make the pizza. This is the oven. It's a rotisserie oven.
What is the secret?
There is no secret. As you can see, there's pasting tomatoes. Put them in a pan, you add salt and water, and you cook them.
That's the secret.
There's no secret.
Are you superstitious about anything?
No. I believe in UFOs. If a UFO came down and said, "You want to go for a ride? See ya, sweetheart. I'm gone for a long ride. Give me a couple of Bud Lights and a couple of Jacks. See you later."
I said goodbye to Big Lenny. I had to get back to Los Angeles because I wanted to catch up with Brother Jed, who was going to be preaching at UCLA. But first I grabbed lunch with my friend Steve Fromstein.
How's the search going? Have you found any answers yet?
It's going pretty well. I feel like I'm making some progress, but it still feels like something's missing.
Maybe you gotta leave the country. Have you ever noticed that wherever somebody's from, that's what they believe?
It's a good point.
I've always wanted to discuss this stuff with like an expert of some kind.
You want to meet Brother Jed?
Who's that?
He said, "Repent and be baptized." God's gonna cast you vagina lickers into hell lickety-split.
I have a question.
This gentleman has a question.
If Jesus died for our sins, why does anybody go to hell then?
Your past sins are forgiven, but not your future sins.
If you're retarded and you go to heaven, are you retarded in heaven for eternity?
God is the healer.
If he's a healer, then why couldn't he heal you when you're alive?
He could, and he has.
Is there any evidence today that there is a God?
I've never heard anybody really get around the design argument. We know these glasses had a maker. And then we get to thinking how much more intricate the human eyeballs are.
So because man is very intricate, he must have had a creator. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Then isn't God more intricate than man?
When God, what do we define him as God? I'm talking about, of course, the God of the Bible.
Why is it so hard to believe that man evolved out of nothing when we believe that God existed out of nothing?
Well, God has always been.
Do you believe that Adam and Eve were the first man and woman then?
Yes.
If God created Adam and Eve, then where did the different races come from?
I would speculate that as certain people intermarry, they begin to develop distinct characteristics.
So you're saying if you took a country where there was only Caucasian people, eventually with them intermarrying with each other, you'd get Chinese people and black people and Indians?
I think over a certain time it might have something to do with the climate.
So you're saying they would adapt to their climate, and that's what evolution is?
I don't believe they all have a common ancestor.
Do you believe in cavemen?
I believe there are people living in caves now.
Do you think maybe 6,000 years from now there'll be a few new races?
The Bible says that God is made of one blood, all peoples. And, we're all the human race.
I don't know why it bothers me so much what people believe, but I think it is serious, that's what wars are based on. That's what hatred and all that is based on. It matters. But if there is a God, I'm in a lot of trouble. But I guess if you say you're sorry at the end, it's all right.
I took Steve's advice and decided to go to the countries where many of our beliefs actually originated, like Israel, Italy, China, and India. It was definitely a challenge to decide which countries to visit. And how do I choose who to interview? I mean, what qualifications does somebody need to have an opinion on the infinite? Hi, I'm Roger. What's your name?
My name is Ali. I'm a Muslim, Shia Muslim. I was in the Air Force.
Where?
Officer in the Air Force in Iran.
Why is there suffering?
No one in the world, I believe, born to have fun.
You think we evolved or were we created?
God created everybody else. We started from Adam and Noah, whatever, then... Well, I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much.
Aside from the Native Americans' approach, all our basic philosophies and religions in the U.S. are imported from somewhere else. I chose Israel as my first stop because it's the source of the Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I began my search in Jerusalem. The Hill of Calvary, which means place of the skull, is supposed to be the site of Jesus' crucifixion. Nobody knows exactly where Jesus was buried, but the tomb in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre stands in for now. The stone of anointing is where Jesus' body was prepared for burial. Supposedly, whatever touches this death stone absorbs good vibes. Nearby is the Wailing Wall, where Jews come to pray and to mourn the destruction of the Second Holy Temple 2,000 years ago. Muslims also claim the wall as a holy site, because they believe it's where Muhammad tied up his winged horse. I was there on a holiday, so I took part in a Jewish ritual that's a request to God for rain. I wanted to get some answers, so I found a rabbi.
This is our house in the Har Nof section of Jerusalem. We're now entering the Sukkah. This is the week of the festival of Sukkot, which takes place a week after the holiest days of the year. We do everything that we do in the course of the week outside in this Sukkah.
Why do we exist?
If we define existence as that which God has, because the one thing we can say about God is that he exists, he is, he has a state, he exists in a state of absolute isness. In Hebrew, that's called yeshut, isness. By in no way, shape, or form can I define myself relative to those terms, meaning that's a level of reality that is completely beyond time, completely beyond space, completely even beyond finite or infinite. God isn't even infinite. He creates infinite reality, and he creates finite reality. He's beyond both, which helps solve the problem how the philosophers asked, how can it be that an infinite God creates finite reality? Judaism doesn't see a problem whatsoever because God's not infinite. God's completely beyond limitation. Infinite reality itself is limited by virtue of the fact that it can't express itself in a finite way. Finite reality is limited to the extent that it exists within the context of some sort of finite space, finite time. God is beyond both.
Well, that gave me something to think about. In Italy, San Giovanni Rotondo was the home of a miracle worker named Padre Pio. He had wounds, or stigmata, that would appear on his hands and feet once a week when he was alone in his room. Padre Pio said he believed that love of God and suffering were the same thing. The Vatican banned him from celebrating Mass because they thought he was insane. Then they made him a saint in 2002, and now pilgrims come here to be cured, and to buy dolls with bleeding hands. Nearby, in Loreto, I ran into the Archbishop, who is assigned to the Padre Pio shrine. Can all religions be right?
I think no. I know that in the world there are many and many religions. I know my religion is the true religion. To believe in Christ is not easy, but not impossible.
When in Rome, you've got to try to see the Pope. The Vatican is a sovereign nation, and it's also the wealthiest organization in the world. I was lucky enough to be there for one of the Pope's public appearances.
Hey, Pope! Pope! Over here! Why do we exist?
I figured I'd try again after his speech.
After the resurrection, it was John who recognized the risen Lord standing on the shore and pointed him out to Peter.
After the speech, I made an appointment with the bishop and the press agent in charge of seeing the Pope. They said it's easy to meet the Pope. You get about 10 or 20 minutes, as long as you donate 20 grand. You know, it's for the orphans. I think $200 is the most I would have gone. When I didn't cough up the cash, the bishop thanked me and put me back out on the street. By contrast, the tour of the Vatican was free, and they had dead popes on display. Real dead bodies. So in the end, I did get to meet with the Pope. In England, there is a 7th century Anglican cathedral 2 hours north of London in the town of Ely. The Ely Cathedral is best known for its controversial depiction of the Virgin Mary.
It has caused great controversy. People either love it or hate it.
What do the people who don't like it say?
They don't like the arms raised up, the hips thrust forward. They don't feel that Mary traditionally would have been a blonde. Suffice to say, it is the fastest selling postcard in the shop.
Should religious ideas be challenged?
Absolutely. Religion is very dangerous. It works on the margins of human society, human sanity sometimes. Some of our psychiatric hospitals are full of people who think they're either God or Napoleon, and a lot of that's often characterized in religious language, religious fervor.
Well, I've come across many patients who've had a schizophrenic form of illness. We had at one stage 2 people who thought they were the Messiah, both on the same ward. And it ended up in a great big punch-up because one said, I'm the Messiah, the other said, no, I'm the Messiah. And they had to be separated by the nurses.
Where do the voices in our head come from?
From the place where the birds make their sound.
Of all the people who are in the inpatient facilities who say they're Jesus Christ, how do you know one of them isn't?
I don't know how to explain it. I don't know. I just know that the Lord really, I feel like, because I hate it when people are like, the Lord spoke to me, you know. You're like, okay, well, whatever. But I feel like the Lord really does speak to me.
If an individual has faith that he is Napoleon, then you say he's loony. But if 100 million people have faith in some God, then because it's 100 million, you are supposed to respect it. But there's actually no more evidence for the God that they believe in than for the lunatic's belief that he's Napoleon.
We believe in the Quran that when Almighty God has said that he'll be the last messenger, Prophet Muhammad the last messenger. Anyone who says after that he gets the revelation, he requires a psychiatrist.
When people are actually receiving revelation from God, there's a coherence and a rationality about it. It passes tests. And the things they say end up being demonstrably true when you live according to them.
It could be coming from another aspect of my own consciousness. It could be coming from my guide. It could be coming from another being altogether. It could just be coming from God. In some sense, an aspect of my own imagination may be making it all up. But I think that that idea in and of itself is sometimes just as astounding.
Our experience is that there's one me in here. I sit here behind my eyes and I look out through them as if they're the windshield of a car, and I see the world as it really is. In fact, it turns out there's lots of people back here, and different ones of them are controlling your behavior at different times. The one that has language, the one that is conscious, the one you think you are is just a member of the family.
It was time to get back on the road. Next up was Oxford, the oldest university in the English-speaking world. I figured these guys at Oxford should be able to come up with some concrete answers.
Particles, in fact, don't exist. Consider, for example, a particle we all know and love, the electron. They're all the same. You know, if you produce an electron on the other side of the universe and you brought it here and compared it with an electron, they're the same. It's not in the same way that you pick up two red billiard balls and say, you know, these are pretty similar. We say they're identical. This is because the electron, as a separate, distinct entity, doesn't really exist. They are merely bumps in something called a field, which is a property of space and time. And if it's true for the fundamental particles in nature, it's true for everything that makes them up, including us. And so, at some level, we don't exist.
Even though I may not exist, I decided to go through with my next interview.
If you look out into space, you see this enormous universe. What we can see 100 billion galaxies, and each one has 100 billion stars. We look at all of that, and we say, you know, why do we exist? It's got to be all about us.
If you went back to the Big Bang and started all over again with the same materials, started the universe again, would you get the same result, the same universe that we have now?
The short answer is no. There are quite a number of inherent sources of randomness in the processes that lead from the Big Bang to where we are now. And that randomness would guarantee that the universe would not be identical. Now, it would be very similar.
The question, why are the laws of physics the way they are, would be we're just observing those that allow beings like ourselves.
What is the origin of the universe, and how does that affect our origin?
Let me think about a good way of addressing this.
Don't bullshit me.
Yeah. Oh, you caught me, man.
And I can go on for hours like this if you want me to.
Ooh, look at the time. The particle physicists could have kept me busy all week, which would have been fine, but I wanted to see what Oxford's resident heretic had to say. Is there a God?
No, almost certainly not. The God idea is very emotionally appealing for various reasons. It's very nice to feel that you're being looked after. And I think another reason is that a lot of people don't understand the nature of scientific explanation. And so they think that you actually need a God to explain existence, which is actually doubly wrong. Not only do you not need one, it's positively counterproductive if you're trying to understand the nature of existence.
I also met with an author who is an ex-Scientologist and wrote a book about his experiences.
I believe that dismissing religion, as scientific atheists are seeking to do, is a terrible mistake. They're the new theologians. They're not talking about how many angels dance on the head of a pin, it's how many neutrinos dance on the head of a pin. And now we're going, well, there are hundreds of billions of universes. You start getting into the thing, well, wouldn't it be easier to think that there's an entity called Brahman who is dreaming, and out of this comes this wonderful thing. Isn't that just as relevant as a way of describing it? Because it's beyond human comprehension anyway.
Well, there's one place everybody agrees holds all the answers. Some say Stonehenge is an astronomical observatory. Others a religious, healing, or burial site. Some believe the wizard Merlin moved the stones from Ireland, where Stonehenge had been constructed by giants. What we do know is that Stonehenge is still a place of pilgrimage for Druids. And if you're going to talk with the Druid, go straight to the top.
My name is Arthur Uther Pendragon. I'm commonly known as King Arthur. I'm a senior Druid and battle chieftain. The origins of the Druid and of the pagan is the indigenous religion of these isles. Druidry itself is not actually a religion, it's a philosophical standpoint. It's basically just a worship in nature and a belief that the earth itself is sacred.
Why did you choose to become a Druid?
I simply had a belief structure and a belief system that I adhered to myself, and all of a sudden found that it had a label, and that was Druid. It was only when meeting other Druids that told me, oh, you must be a Druid then.
So you connected with somebody who informed you that the belief structure you held was in sync with what Druids believed.
Yeah, and you're interviewing him tomorrow.
My name is Rollo Morphling. I'm Archdruid of Stonehenge in Britain. This is the Kern Giant. He represents anciently the principle of fertility. He's represented with a erect phallus because without human lovemaking and procreation, there would be no more human race.
The Kern Giant is so popular in this area, he can be found just about everywhere. I'll admit I was tempted, but I didn't wait around to see what the clock did at midnight. Why is God so interested in human sexual behavior?
This sexuality was regarded in sacred context as being a means and a path to the divine, an experience of celestial matters.
God is very concerned about our sexual behavior. It is a major issue with God.
I'd say God is so interested in sex because people are interested in sex.
And in the book of Proverbs in the Bible, it says, the mouth of a strange woman is a deep pit. You might want to write that down.
When the Christians came, they started telling us that's all wrong. You need to cover your bodies and be ashamed of it. You need to be ashamed of sexuality.
Sex is to be avoided.
If you really love and respect your parents in their marriage, you personally would not have sex before marriage.
Why on earth would anybody buy a pair of gloves without trying them on?
Should people have sex after marriage is the real question.
如果一个人不结婚啊，或者这个不生育子女，这个孔子来讲，对他来讲，这是不可理解的，这是你没有尽到你对天地的责任。
If you have a religion that encourages people to have many children, it has many followers. If you have a religion that tells people not to reproduce, that religion tends to die out.
Is masturbation a sin?
Masturbation is one of the first steps of sexual perversion. Your masturbator today is very likely to end up your homosexual of tomorrow. I mean, you're having sex with yourself, you're a man, you're already sort of homo.
वही दुष्ट है, वही पापी है, जो ऐसा कर्म करते हैं.
What a strange question.
You can actually create an entire universe and you've got nothing better to do but worry whether people are putting their hands in their pants. Does that seem a little fishy?
Masturbation is a dangerous practice for precisely its promiscuity, always with perfect mates.
So that's the problem, not what you're actually doing physically, but what you have to think of to make it happen. That's why God created woman, to enjoy. Why don't you take that woman to enjoy? Why you want to do yourself some nonsense?
This is not good, because we believe there is life in semen. So we kill the life.
Most of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in my life would have been averted if I had masturbated first. I don't mean just sexual mistakes. I mean, like, say you're mad at your boss, or, you know, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to tell him you masturbated. It's like, you know what? Maybe just take a nap.
It's a natural birthright of every child when they reach puberty is masturbation as a prelude to full sex and lovemaking, isn't it? this is part of the human condition. We can't escape that anymore. We suddenly decide eating is wrong and stop eating. I mean, what happened to us then?
I felt like it was time for me to go beyond the philosophies I'd grown up with. China is the other philosophical pillar between Eastern and Western thought. It's the source of Confucianism and Taoism. I was a little bit nervous about being in China, mainly because it's illegal to do any interviews without government approval, and I was there without any official approval. I started out by touring the biggest historical landmark in Beijing. The Forbidden City is where you would find the emperor in ancient times. He was regarded as divine, literally as a son of heaven. I think they're practicing red light, green light. I didn't want to offend any of the guards, so I thought I better find myself a local guide who could help keep me out of trouble.
This is the South Gate, also named Meridian Gate.
The main gate at Tiananmen Square was originally called the Gate of Accepting Heavenly Mandate. A portrait of Mao Zedong has hung there since his death in 1976, and people now venerate Mao as a god. I'm here one day and I'm already in the wrong place. I thought I would try someplace a little bit quieter.
像毛泽东，为什么把他当神一样？因为他缔造了一个国家。
Tao means the way, and it's the energy or qi behind all existence. Kind of like the force. What is the name of this mountain?
Mountain Taishan. This is the most secret one. This street is called Street of Heaven because the ancient people thought if you stand on this summit, just like you stand in the heaven, because it's too high.
It's very close to the sky, so it feels close to heaven.
Yeah.
Lao Tzu, which means old master, was the one who originated Taoism. The legend says that Lao Tzu was conceived by a falling star, and then he stayed in his mother's womb for 62 years until he was born as a full-grown old man with a long white beard. Luckily, I was able to meet with the head Taoist.
诵经，这是修道的一个法门。道就是一切事物的本源。神，我认为是有的。我们道教的这个最高理想就是修道成真。如果你今生今世做好事，来世也会修。如果修不成真，来世还可以继续实修。
One version of the Taoism creation story says that humans were once fleas on the body of the god Pangu, who was the first being to pop like an egg out of the chaos of the early universe. Fortune-telling and astrology are traditional Taoist pursuits.
属猴的是你的地雷，就在饮食方面上、煎炒方面上、油炸方面上的东西少吃一点。
Ironically, the next stop was for some chicken fried rice. When the menu said fresh chicken, I didn't realize just how fresh they meant. Our chef took the order and then she walked outside and strangled a chicken. I had to admit it smelled pretty good, plus it would have been kind of disrespectful to turn down the meal. I guess I should have known what I was in for when I saw that river. I'll tell you one thing about an extreme case of traveler's diarrhea. It certainly gave me a new appreciation for life again, when it was finally over. 2 days later.
Chufu is the birthplace of our national spirit, Confucianism.
Confucius was probably the first to express a version of the golden rule.
就是己所不欲，勿施于人。
How do we know what rules to follow? How do we know what's right and wrong? What is morality?
Morality means to follow the right path shown by the scriptures.
जो अगले धर्म को नहीं सोच रहे हैं, फिर ऐसा नहीं करेगा.
You do good because you derive pleasure from doing good, or you're afraid that if you don't do good, you're going to be punished. Either way, it's entirely self-serving.
Should you feel bad? Is a good act only good if it makes you feel bad?
The part of the brain, the pleasure center of the brain that lights up when you take cocaine and when you have sex and so on, also lights up when you do nice things for people.
If you haven't accepted Christ, you can do all the good you want, and you're still going to go straight to hell.
Are you telling me if I prove to you right now that God doesn't exist, that you're free to go out and rape and pillage? Would you do that? And the answer is obviously no. There's something, I argue, deeper than a supernatural entity that's guiding my choices.
Morality is a way of thinking that makes it a little easier
to live with people and for people to live with you.
I'm afraid to tell you that I think that morality is probably a Darwinian adaptation.
That's your answer for everything.
I'm afraid so.
We know a chimpanzee that does a favor for another will get that favor returned at a later date. That's reciprocal altruism. That's really an amazing thing. Those chimps can trade favors. That's do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And these guys can't even read.
We all want to judge each other's lives. And morality is the word we have for everybody pointing the finger at everybody else.
If you had to believe in a religion or a God to do right, then we're not in God's image.
I only have two moral principles that I base all other moral principles on, which is compassion and honesty. I think if you live your life by compassion and honesty, all the other moral virtues follow from those.
法律也可以使这个国家有秩序，但是这个国家的人民没有羞耻心。一个没有羞耻心的国家和社会，对他来讲那是不能接受的。
How important is this Confucius temple to Chinese people?
Confucius Temple is the Chinese Vatican. We consider the tour to this temple as a pilgrimage. Do you know why it's so narrow?
Why is this so narrow?
To prevent people from stealing something.
Oh, you can't bring a desk through there or something, or steal a statue.
Yeah.
What does it say?
happiness.
So this brings me happiness. How do I find happiness?
幸福可以自己的勤劳嘛。
Now that I understood one of the secrets to happiness, I looked for a way to find it. That's gonna be some good eating tonight.
你刚才说从街上我们的这个福字，中国节挂的福是一种吉祥，一种招式吧，大家希望得到。但是你把它挂在家门口，你就有福了吗？
How do we find happiness?
By smiling.
Happiness is realizing your true nature.
The things that have made my life wonderful are my closeness with other people. Marijuana has been a fantastic part of my life.
But a person cannot have joy without a relationship with God, because joy is eternal.
Making the argument that you have to be religious or believe in God to be happy would only be made by somebody in a particular religion who feels that that's the only way they can get it.
Happiness is a byproduct of having purpose and meaning. It isn't a goal.
Ultimate happiness, that comes from only understanding the nature of your mind.
Happiness seems to be related to several different neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin.
Nobody can really be happy. You could have moments of happiness, moments of joy. But life is very difficult unless you're a total idiot. Then you can be happy.
如果你总觉得自己那个愿望太大的话，总觉得自己所以我们在道教里面在《道德经》里面就提倡要知足。
Which one of these is good luck? This one?
Yeah.
It's very quiet and very peaceful here.
Graveyard.
Yeah. When does my good luck start?
Now.
Right now?
Yeah.
This is a good place to come and get away from the city. You can talk to the dead people, because they have to listen. They have no choice. Here at the street market in Beijing, they've got fried grasshopper, fried cricket, fried silkworm, and fried scorpion. Have you eaten grasshopper?
No, disgusting.
Would you eat the snake?
No, I don't eat snake because I believe in snake. Snake for Chinese people is the fortune god. When I was small, my granddad told me if the snake on the roof of your house, just leave it there, and you can get fortune.
Well, I hope you dream of a snake tonight.
Thank you.
I found it interesting that even though China is officially atheistic, a lot of their culture and traditions are still influenced by superstition. The final country I wanted to learn about was India, the source of some of the oldest religions on the planet. The biggest difference I noticed between Eastern and Western religion is that in the West, we look outward for God. In the East, they look inward. The Indian religions, like Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism, and Buddhism, have their roots in the same ancient civilization, which is where the word Hindu comes from, referring to people from the Indus Valley. Varanasi is the holiest city in Hinduism. 80% of the people in India today are considered Hindu. Worship of nature, the river, the sun, and Mother Earth is important to Hindus. people come to die in Varanasi. They believe that bathing in the Mother Ganga will absolve them of all their sins. Dying and being cremated here frees you from the cycle of death and rebirth. The cremation fires burn 24 hours, consuming thousands of bodies per month. The bone and ash that remain are shoveled into the river or spread over the bodies of the sadhus, the Hindu holy men. The sadhus put on painful-looking physical displays, partly to show as celibates they have full control of their sexual urges. Also, it prepares the body for the spiritual path. The Kumbh Mela is the largest religious gathering in the world. It's held in Allahabad in January. It's exciting and overwhelming, and with over 50 million pilgrims to contend with, I figured I'd better find a local guide.
Now we are in the Allahabad where the Kumbh Mela is going on. People are coming from all over the world and they are so much spiritualistic about this experience. Many people look here, this with a man with all his things on his head. So the people are going towards the Ganges site. This is the Kumbh Mela.
One of the Hindu priests I met there was a sadhu. This one belongs to a sect that renounces all worldly possessions, including clothing. Before joining that lifestyle, they have to attend their own funeral, and they're considered legally dead.
I don't know. I know only Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. दिन में रात में 24 hours राम no खाना no पीना no you come also with आप भी उसी में आइए.
No trip to the Kumbh Mela is complete without ending up at the banks of the Ganges, where the spiritual cleansing takes place. They say a dip in the holy waters is like being with God. I felt myself being swept up in it all, becoming part of the celebration. The people were so open and they were willing to show me how to focus attention on the inner self via the spiritual third eye, or the eye of the soul. If we're going to a better place, how exactly does that happen? What is a soul?
The soul is another one of those fun game questions to play with your mind because you're afraid of dying.
How is the soul created?
Soul cannot be created. It is the nature of the human being.
At the same time, maybe souls are coming from other places, other experiences, other planets, other dimensions.
Everybody who's ever done a past life regression thing, and I've heard literally hundreds of these people say, oh, I was with Jesus in my last life. I'm going like, why wasn't anybody just sweeping the streets or anything?
Every living being have been our mother in previous lives. So mother comes first in our practice. So we like women on top.
Anything that was created by God has a soul and a feeling. Trees have feelings.
According to Islam, animals don't have a soul.
The soul is particular to human beings.
I'd like to have my dogs again when I'm in heaven.
When your body no longer exists, when it is buried, you are still just as conscious as you are right now.
You need the brain for consciousness.
Can a soul exist outside our body?
I don't know, I'm afraid to cut myself open and find out.
Soul is not there, brain will not work.
The soul is a type of wishful thinking that resides in the frontal lobe.
The brain is the very same thing that all of this is occurring in. This whole experience is the brain of God.
South of Delhi is Agra and the Taj Mahal, which is actually a tomb. It was built by an Islamic emperor for one of his wives. Near Agra is Mathura, which is where Krishna was born. Krishna is considered by Hindus to be a divine being, an avatar, or a god in the flesh. In order to improve their karma, the Jainists try to avoid harming all living creatures. Their holiest symbol is the swastika and the ahimsa, which symbolizes nonviolence.
It has got its own philosophy and based mainly on the 5 fundamental principles: non-violence, truth, celibacy, non-stealing, and non-possession.
Senior monks embrace nonviolence to the point of wearing mouth coverings to prevent insects and germs from entering their bodies and being killed. Could you explain how karma works? Like if you take the example of where a baby is born blind.
The baby is born blind because of his karma acquired in the past life. This is good for those who are having very mental problem. If they sit in pyramid helps them get concentration.
How does meditation work?
Body is steady, mind is calm and quiet, breath slowed down, there is no thinking, no vibrations.
simply feeling the self-awareness.
Mahatma Gandhi was a Hindu, but he grew up surrounded by the Jain influences, which is how he learned at an early age the ideas of nonviolence and mutual tolerance between religions.
Gandhiji always believed that God is not God per se, but godly qualities, the positive qualities, they are within you. What you see here are the clothes that he was wearing on that last day when he was shot. There was a group of Hindu fundamentalists who did not want Gandhiji to go to Pakistan, who felt that Gandhiji was soft towards Muslims.
So it was the difference in religion?
Yeah, it was religious. Yes, it was a difference in religion, which for Gandhiji, all religions were the same.
Gandhi said, God is at the bottom of both good and evil. He directs the assassin's dagger no less than the surgeon's knife. Gandhi's memorial bears an epigraph believed to be his last words, He Ram, which translates to, O God.
We have to use religion to diminish our negative tendencies instead of becoming fundamentalists.
Before coming to India, the only Sikh I'd ever met was a cab driver named Gary. But I wanted to find out, who are the Sikhs? Could you explain, what does the word Sikh mean?
Sikh means a student, a learner, a disciple. But at that point, who is not learning? Isn't a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew or a non-believer learning? Everyone is a Sikh.
The three main requirements of a Sikh are meditate on God, which they interpret as the universe itself, work hard and honestly, and learn to share.
So anybody can come in, help prepare food, can come for join for lunch or dinner. No bar on anybody as such. Religions are simple schools of thoughts of management of societies at large. As to how do you organize people, organize masses, make people learn to be in harmony, not only among themselves as a disciplined individual or as a group, but also with the nature.
Bodh Gaya is where Prince Siddhartha attained enlightenment around 530 BC and became known as the Buddha, or the Enlightened One. Buddhists believe that Bodh Gaya is the center of the universe. When I arrived, I had a hard time getting to sleep. When somebody gets married there, they like you to know about it. All night long. The next morning, I set off for the temple. The Mahabodhi Temple, or Great Awakening Temple, contains a Buddha statue from the 10th century. Every night, they give the Buddha a fresh change of clothing. Every year, thousands of monks converge on this spot for a 10-day chanting festival. It's like a convention of Buddhists.
The reason why I came here is to pray for the world peace.
Buddha gives peace and knowledge for all.
Most important thing is get enlightenment.
Is it possible one of the many thousands of people here could be the future Buddha who's come here to be enlightened?
Of course.
Because he have completely understood the nature of the mind, nature of the existence.
And then if we practice really hard, there will be time for us that we can attain enlightenment on same place here.
When we do this, so that we are purifying the negative karma.
When you start meditating, it all comes out. I'm remembering stuff that I didn't know that I knew, right? I mean, junk, like junk. I'm like, why is there so much junk in my head? It all comes back when you start cleaning house. Holy cow. Don't think you forget anything. Garbage in, garbage out.
The Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree and he meditated for an entire week until he understood everything. Then he spent a second week standing and staring up at the tree without blinking while it all sank in. Inside the temple, the monks perambulate around the perimeter, while outside the beggars watch, learning firsthand the Buddha's noble truth about suffering, that the cause of suffering is the desire for material things. And as soon as you stop desiring things, you will stop suffering.
苦しみっていうものを受け入れます。苦しみを受け入れた上で乗り越える。
Throughout history, countless people have proclaimed themselves to be God, the Savior, the Messiah, the Avatar, and there are a half dozen still living avatars in India right now. One self-proclaimed god, who died in 1969, was Meher Baba, and his followers still gather at the site of his tomb every year on the anniversary of his death.
Amar Tithi is the day Baba dropped his body. Amar Tithi means immortal date.
I can't see him, but I know he's present everywhere that I go. And that he's the one that's directing everything that's happening right now.
I believe that Meher Baba is the manifestation of the avataric force, the descent of God coming into life here.
And he said, I was Jesus, I was Buddha, I was Ram, I was Zoroaster, I was Muhammad, and now Meher Baba.
You are the Ancient One, the highest of the high, beloved God. Help us all to love you more and more and more and more, and still yet more, till we become worthy of union with you.
Beloved Baba said, after I drop my body, the physical remains will rest here, and this hill will become an important place of pilgrimage for the whole world.
This is Meher Baba's tomb, and Baba said in the future, more people come here than even to Mecca.
My journey was almost over, but I was excited because I was finally going to meet the most famous self-proclaimed guru living in India today, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. He's a former disciple of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, founder of Transcendental Meditation. The first thing I witnessed was an ancient ceremony called the puja. While making offerings to the gods, they believe that chanting the ancient mantras creates a positive vibration. Different days require different mantras, depending on which god the day belongs to. And today was the god Ganesha's day, Ganesha being the god with the head of an elephant. What is the mission of your ashram, Your Holiness?
To put a smile on everybody's face.
The energy of the place, when you enter, you can feel the effect of so many minds having become still. It casts such a soothing vibration in the atmosphere. The way we put it is to smile at yourself.
Why do people come to see him?
I feel they can't help it. Whoever has been with him once, they simply get drawn towards his unconditional love.
People come here to fulfill their need. It could be somebody who is seeking, searching for answers. Who am I? And I need a guide, a guru to show me that path.
For me, religion is like the banana skin. Spirituality is the banana. Today we have thrown the banana and holding on to the banana skin.
Does belief in God require a religion? What is spirituality?
Somewhere around 24% of Americans make that claim, that they're spiritual but not religious.
Let's say that we're going to get spiritual. How would we start?
I have no idea. I think what it means is that they have warm feelings from time to time.
Spirituality literally means the path to God.
The idea of spirituality is that sort of seeking after God, but it's often unconnected to religious practice.
Spirituality means I want to sense something greater because I know that I'm not strong enough to do it myself, but I don't want to have to answer to anybody for anything.
The simplest difference between spirituality and religion is you won't kill anybody for having a slightly different version of spirituality.
Religion is for people that believe they're going to hell, and spirituality is for those that have already been there.
I've looked at nature with a sense of wonder. And to me, that's spirituality.
Many people say that they don't believe in God or the Bible, but there's got to be something.
There's got to be something, yes. Well, of course there's something. There's a hell of a lot, and we don't yet understand it all. Science is working on it, and when we discover it, it's going to be even more wonderful than what we know at present. And God knows that's wonderful. God knows. That's wonderful enough.
Finally, I was off to attend one of Ravi Shankar's world-famous meditation workshops, where thousands come to see him in person and pay tribute to him and be instructed by the master himself. Ravi Shankar said, every emotion has a corresponding rhythm in the breath, and regulating breathing can help people with their suffering. After the meditation show, we went to an after-party, where there was plenty of food, drink, worship, and where everybody got to watch His Holiness check his email.
People say they come to you and you bring them joy, but do you think the joy comes from within themselves?
Absolutely. Yeah, joy is one's nature. You only dehusk them, that's all. Stress is the husk which covers the joy, the light of it within a person.
After meeting so many experts and gurus, with each new person I took the time to get to know, a new part of me awakened. The more I learned about people, the more I liked them, and the less judgmental I felt. I became less fearful of our differences. I realized how similar we all are. We all want love and peace and a few answers that'll help make life easier. We just want to get to the pancakes. So, as long as we are here, how should we continue to live our lives? Why were we placed on this planet? To strive and suffer and succeed, only to die. The only thing I'm certain of is nobody has the answer. Not yet, anyway. But we're getting a little closer every day. The only thing guaranteed is this moment right now. How am I going to spend it? I'm going to keep searching. Because you and I are on a journey. And when you stop learning and growing, you start dying. Is the world a better place for having had human beings in it?
It's a better place for having had the righteous here.
I have to sometimes think that God wonders, what have I done?
Part of what it means to be human is to be religious. And what it means to be religious is to search for that meaning and purpose.
Well, if past, present, and future is all the same, then who's to say what's better and what's worse?
This is my philosophy. Get a Bible, read it, and live the way it tells you to live.
Submit. It's so much easier when you submit.
Don't inflict your path on other people.
Express your love for others, one person at a time.
Live simple and pure life.
Whatever action you take, always think of the poorest of the poor. How is it going to affect that person?
When you're living as a sacrifice for other people, for other beings, for this whole planet, you're going to be happy. Even if you're not happy, you're going to be happy. There's a part of you that's going to be fulfilled.
Everybody is different. You know, just live with each other, that's all.
It's nice to be important, but it's far more important to be nice.
So here we are in the midst of this extraordinary evolutionary period called the technological revolution. And it boggles my mind that people are saying, well, it's all over. I mean, my God, we're just starting on a journey that is going to take us to a place that no one here can anticipate.
It looks like the universe will continue to expand forever.
If that's the case, at some point in the far, far distant future, the universe will be ripped apart by this expansion. That will be its doomsday. Unless we're wrong.
On the first day that I saw you, your eyes met mine. Now I'm so wrapped up in you, and I can't stop thinking about you, baby. I don't know why I feel this way.